Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. So, I would like to know if you can put in the comments down below how you discovered this podcast. Did you just see it spring up in Spotify? Did you see it on Apple Podcasts? Are you just listening and watching to the YouTube episode, or you basically watched some of the short form clips that I put onto Instagram and TikTok, and then you ended up here listening to the podcast? So, put in the comments where you've discovered this from, because I'd like to know so I can understand a little bit more about this funnel as I continue to do this podcast thing. And hopefully it's something you want to do as well, because this is one of the areas that I'll be covering in this podcast is how you can do the same stuff as well, because I want to basically get to the point where I've done at least 30 podcast episodes, because only 1% of podcasts ever get to 30 episodes. So if you can get to that point, it puts you in the top 1% of all podcasts in the world. So that's what I'd like to do. So I'd like you to come with me on the journey. There's 3 key things we're going to cover in today's episode. The first is about creativity and how it can sometimes help you, but it also can hinder you. And then the next part is going to be about momentum and productivity and accountability, sort of how you actually get more stuff done. And I'm not going to talk about this in terms of like the cult of productivity. I'm going to be really honest about the fact that sometimes productivity for your own project, your own side hustle, the creative thing you're working on is really difficult to actually do, and how accountability and collaboration can really help you get the progress that you're looking for. And the third part is going to be about AI and like the future of work. Now, immediately you might get the ick and you don't want to listen to that part, but I really encourage you to actually stay and listen to that part, because initially when all this AI hype started, I had the same thing. I was resisting it, I was pushing it away. But what I've realized is that these are basically just a whole bunch of experiments, and the things that work will eventually become part of our everyday work, our everyday lives. And this has happened before in all of the different transformations of technology. So I want to kind of break down some of the tools that are actually working and quite useful and how I'm using it now, but also the projections of what's probably going to happen over the next 5 or 10 years with AI. So we can kind of go along this journey together and have a bit of a growth mindset, be a bit more open to these things, and just generally feel less stressed about this threat of AI. So I'm really talking about this balance around the momentum that can support the thing you're working on to drive it forwards, but also all the obstacles and barriers you might hit along the way that you feel resistance. I'm going to hopefully get to the point where you have a bit more positivity and a bit more momentum about all of these challenges and obstacles and how you can actually work through them and how we can work through these together. That's what we're going to talk about. Let's dive in. So the first part is about creativity. Now, having creative ideas is really important to solve problems, to basically come up with different things that you might want to sell, to basically have different ideas that are useful in your workplace. And some of the things that I find really challenging is I had a huge amount of creative ideas. Ideation is one of my strengths. And so every day I'm coming up with lots of ideas. And from my point of view, every single one of these ideas is fantastic. And I should work on it immediately. I will come up with an idea and then I'll go and buy a domain name. And I think I have 60 or 70 domain names at the moment. And I think deep down, I'm hoping that one of my projects will eventually pay for all of the rest of the kind of insurance that I've bought to reserve these different names. But what I've really realized over time is that those names don't mean anything. You can have a different brand for something and deliver it well, and it still works. Like you look at all these different startups with these crazy names, and even like Facebook and YouTube are ridiculous names, but they just ended up working because they were the biggest, they functioned well, and they had the most momentum. So the name that you give your project, the brand name that you come up with for this thing, isn't the whole thing. It's just part of what might help it to work. Right, so coming up with creative names, having a good use of language and being really good with words is one of my strengths. And the downside is that it means that every time I come up with a cool creative idea that I think will work really well, I want to go and buy the domain name, when the domain name has nothing to do with executing the project, actually building it out. A lot of the time I was being a wantrepreneur, not an entrepreneur. I was wanting to build out all these things and work on these things, but I wasn't actually being accountable in doing it, because I'd look at one of those ideas and go, oh, maybe it won't work. Maybe it won't be big enough. This new idea is more important. This new idea is better and bigger and more amazing. And so if you are creative, if you're trying to start your own business, if you're kind of trying to sell your own products, you'll constantly be battling with yourself around the new ideas that seem to be more exciting than the one that you were working on last week. And part of this distraction comes from the idea that you don't think your idea is good enough. You don't think it'll actually work. You don't think you'll make any money. And so you get a bit distracted and a bit despondent, a bit frustrated about the process about working on it. You can be really creative and come up with great ideas, but if you're not accountable and you're not connecting with peers who are asking, hey, last week you were working on something different. Why have you changed what you're working on? Because other people don't have as many ideas as you. They are just literally looking for one idea. And we've all met business owners like this, where it's clear they only came up with one idea, or they borrowed an idea, or they saw an idea that someone else is doing and said, I'm going to do that. Having a whole bunch of creative ideas is great, but it gets in the way of you actually making progress on one thing. Now, I started to accept this a while ago because I had literally hundreds of ideas written down in the notes on my phone. I've got my notes open right now and it's got 14,000 notes in it. So I'm really good with language, with communication. So I write a lot of stuff, but that's just an overwhelming amount of ideas and content to actually work through. And so what I realized is that I have enough time in my lifetime, I hope, to work on different things one at a time. And I really got excited about different ideas, but I wouldn't execute on it because I was scared about whether or not people would buy it. But also sometimes I was worried about what happens when it is completely successful and it becomes my full-time job. And I don't even know if there's enough revenue there for me to justify spending all of my time every day on it. But there's people that want the product, there's people that want the service. So I basically have to tell those people, I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. And so you want to do something that you can start, that you have momentum, but you also don't want to stop and disappoint people. And so sometimes we sort of vibrate between these two sort of extremes of, I want to work on this thing, I want it to be successful, but what happens if it is successful? And then there's all these other problems that come along with it. Now, one of the challenges you have is if you're quite perceptive, you're quite observant, you'll probably assume and you might recognize all the patterns about the things that might happen as this project progresses. But the thing is, not all of those are going to come true. And it's like when you look at an obstacle course, you're only going to be able to tackle one obstacle at a time. All the obstacles don't happen all at the same time. And this is one of the key things about running a business is all the possible things that could go wrong won't go wrong at the same time. You'll generally be able to deal with them one at a time. You might have two, you might have three at once that you have to deal with when it's a crisis, and then those will dissipate and you get back to kind of normal again. So you're not going to have 15 to 20 things going wrong simultaneously. You do just get to deal with one thing at a time. So the thing I encourage you to do is your ideas, your creativity about the thing you want to work on, the business you want to run, those are good, but you still need to make sure you're focusing on the thing that's actually going to give you forward momentum. And generally speaking, we need to focus on one thing to actually get further. So you can step back and do an audit about all of your ideas, all the things you want to do, but then you go through this filtering process and work out what's the one you want to be working on in a year from now? What's the one you actually want to tell people about? Right? There's a difference between like working in stealth and building in public and actually saying, this is the thing that I'm building on, check out where I'm up to now. And so this has actually been part of my content creator journey. I realized I couldn't build out a following in private and stealth. I have to share, I have to be accountable, I have to show up and make stuff that you can watch. And then as I'm growing my channels over time, there isn't this magical point where I suddenly have enough followers. I'm growing that over time. So if you are having trouble getting started, you're trying to work out what you want to focus on in terms of content and for your business, then this is hopefully the advice that's going to be useful for you that I'm giving. Because I started from this point where I wasn't sure what to share. I was worried about how I looked on camera and how I was showing up. And I just started literally doing it every day. And once I got used to the idea of that routine and that process of committing to making one video every day on TikTok, I started to go, oh, wow, there's actually other things I can do here. I can syndicate my content from TikTok onto Instagram Reels and onto YouTube Shorts. And then I can start actually uploading these widescreen sort of long form videos to YouTube as well. And then the next stage is actually uploading a podcast. And I'm using Spotify for creators to do that at the moment. And so I've kind of had to go through all these levels to kind of get to the place I wanted to get to with my content. And it's a really confusing, difficult process to go through because you get distracted, you think things aren't going to work, and you are doing this on your own. So one of the most important things that I'm trying to do now is to connect with more creators. So I have a little bit of a peer network. So I have a bit of support for what I'm doing. Otherwise, you literally in a hotel room by yourself, talking to yourself, but I'm talking to an audience. I'm talking to you, one person that I'm connecting with right now. Because I notice that for myself, when I'm consuming content, it's almost every single time, it's just me. I'm not listening to content or watching content with a whole bunch of other people. It's just me. So I really want to connect one-on-one with you and say, the challenges that you're facing, the things that you're struggling to focus on, the anxieties you feel about how quickly everything is changing in the world, those are completely normal. And you'll feel better if you start to create the thing you want to work on. And the creativity and the different ideas you have will be a bit debilitating sometimes because they'll distract you from building one thing. And so all I'm trying to say is that it's really important if you want to get one thing completed to accept the fact you're going to have lots of other creative ideas and they're going to try and pull you away from this one thing. But you have to look at all of your ideas and go, what's the one idea that I wished I'd done a year ago that I would love to own and have right now as a thing that I could point to, thing that I can put on my resume and say, I built this thing. Because every single idea that you have is actually going to take longer than you think when you actually start building it. So you have to look at the list of things you'd love to build and go, what's the one thing that I wished I would have done a year ago that I could say and point to and show people now? So it needs to be in public. You need to build in public. It needs to be something you can be proud of, and something, even if it fails, that you can say, I'm glad that I spent my time on that because I'm proud of the efforts that went into actually having a crack at that thing. If the only thing you want to work on is a project or an idea so it can be successful, if you're saying, I will only work on this if it's successful, you're not opening yourself up to the fact that this is a process, a practice that you go through to build something for yourself, to express yourself in the world. And it has no guarantee of success. But the creativity, the creative expression you have from bringing it into the world is really important. Because if you didn't do any of that for the next year, you wouldn't have changed anything. You wouldn't have actually modified or created anything into the world. So it's really important for you to actually express yourself and make something so that in a year from now, you can say, I actually did this thing. And no one asked me to do it. It was just my own idea, and I decided that I wanted to do it. That level of agency for yourself, that you realize that you can make something and deliver it, and people can use it or absorb it or understand it or enjoy it, is really important because that's what we're on this planet to do. So that's what I'm trying to help you to do. And we want to go through it together to manage our creativity, but also to be accountable as well. If you have all these different ideas that are competing for your attention and you keep getting distracted easily, accountability will really help you to stay on track. Now, usually we get this accountability really easy from a workspace because we generally have a boss or a manager who checks in with us for what we're working on, and they say that's the most important thing. And so suddenly we have our priority, and then everything else is deprioritized, and we can just focus on that one thing until it's finished. And generally that manager or that colleague will be asking for that thing to be completed. Where's it at? Can you send it to me? I need to look at it. I want to approve it. And then you're going to go off to the next stage, and someone else is going to keep working on a component of that project. This is really important to think about for yourself when you have a side hustle or you're starting your own business or you're working on a creative project for yourself. You won't have any priority that is set by another person. So setting the priority for yourself and then telling someone else that that is the priority will help you to keep accountable. Because even if it's just a peer and you have basically an accountability buddy that's working on something that's similar to you can check in with that person even monthly, fortnightly, weekly, whatever's the right rhythm for you. When you catch up and they ask you questions about your project, the more times that you have to say, oh, I'm not working on that anymore, I'm working on something else, you'll start to realize that you are doing the stop-start process, that you are tinkering and experimenting and testing, but you're not kind of carrying the momentum through and building this thing out. So, and that's a natural process to have. If you're a very creative person, you've got a bit of a spicy brain, if you're easily distracted, you won't get through to the finish line very easily because you don't worry too much when you're delivering for a boss because they're just going to have their opinion. A subjective opinion is going to come from one person. They might like it, they might not like it. They might want to do a few tweaks and you make some changes, you give it back to them, and then it's done and you can move on. But when you're making this thing for yourself because you decided to create it and put it into the world for your business or for your creative project for yourself, it's really daunting because you suddenly feel like thousands of people are going to have an opinion on the thing that you made. Now, that is literally what success is. Success is lots of people being exposed to a thing that you've put into the world and saying, yes, I like it, I'm going to buy it off you. Or yes, I like it, I'm going to follow you, I'm going to subscribe, I'm going to watch it. Because there's this whole spectrum, right? Of you might just be a content creator and you're looking for views. You might be a content creator who is making long form content and you want people to stay around and watch the content for long enough to get ad revenue because YouTube's going to put ads in the way. Or you might be a person who just wants people to comment and share your content. Or you might be using it as a funnel to organically get people to come to the thing you're offering. You might have a digital product, you might have a course, you might be offering a service, or you might be selling a product. So all of this potential content that you can create that people can like or dislike or comment on can become a funnel to lead people to a particular thing that they're going to engage with. And one of the biggest challenges that you have kind of coming up with this thing that you want to make is realizing that the successful part is actually when tons of people are going to look at it and evaluate whether or not they're going to buy it, and a whole bunch of people might not. So the reality is that about 3 to 4 people out of 1,000 are going to buy the thing that you're offering. So you're going to be failing way more than you are successful when you actually start offering something into the world. And this is a really weird feeling to get used to, right? Because when you're in a workspace and you're giving something to a boss, it's approved like almost every single time. So you're succeeding on a very regular basis inside this safe workspace. Because imagine if you gave 100 projects to your boss and they approved one of them. It'd drive you bonkers, right? You wouldn't have any feeling of success or that the thing you're offering was being liked or delivered at all. And I see this problem constantly when people have just opened up their e-commerce store and they've said, I've had 156 sessions and I haven't had any sales. You need like 3 or 4,000 sessions to start getting those first sales. So that's why you need to get thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views of your content to funnel people to the thing you're offering, because only a fraction of them are ready to buy right now. And some of them will take years before they actually decide to buy. But you can't just expect that the second you start out, everyone's going to like what you're doing. There's only going to be a fraction of people that like what you do, that engage with what you're offering, that are going to share it with other people. And that becomes the funnel that leads to you actually converting and engaging people. As you go through all these levels of success and these challenges in your business and the thing that you're trying to build, you will need peers that understand what you are doing at those different levels. But the way that this has worked for me really well is that on the main platform that you share on regularly, and in my case, that's TikTok, you'll have other creators that really watch your content on a regular basis. And a couple of these people might have enough time to catch up with you on a regular basis. But even if it's just chatting inside the app about what you're working on, what you're doing next, and you both know that you're kind of trying to get momentum and you're trying to deliver this thing, that will help you to keep accountable, because you can check in with each other and basically just bounce this sort of challenge off each other around how many hours you spent on it this week, or why you couldn't stay focused, or how you got distracted to work on this other thing. But having this long-term plan for the phases you need to go through, the things you want to achieve in the next 3 months in terms of this quarter, when you want to deliver the thing, how many resources you need to deliver this project over time. When you're doing your work, like you go to a job and you do your work, you tend to have to present these to a boss because you have to be accountable for what this plan looks like, how we're going to execute across this plan. But often for our own creative projects, we don't have a plan, we don't have a strategy, and we don't have like a timeline for when we're going to deliver these different parts. So this is really important to actually do for ourselves, is if you're trying to focus on a creative project or you're trying to start a business for yourself, you can't just wing it and kind of like vibe plan and just like work out what you're doing. You really need to actually sit down and have a plan and then look at that on a regular basis and see how far along you are in actually executing that thing. Now, some people do differently, like sort of freestyle this and just like wing it. But I think that's like quite distracting and overwhelming, because it stops you from being able to focus on the thing you're working on. And I think one of the things really helpful is, for whatever you want to build, having everything on a single page, like having your plan on a page for why you're doing this thing, who the audience is, what's the actual point of this thing, what's this unique selling point, why would people want this thing, why are you creating it and putting it into the world. If you kind of articulate all of that on a single page, and then you can look at that on a regular basis, that will help you to keep focused on what that thing is. One of the best ways that you can stay accountable is to journal to yourself about what your priority is. And you'll forget it each day, because some people are just really good at remembering what it is they're working on and their why of like what they're actually focused on. But you might, if you were like me, just wake up and go, what am I going to do today? Because you're creative and you get distracted easily. So being able to wake up and actually write down and articulate what you're going to work on and why for yourself is really vital. Because most of the time when we were growing up and we were just going to school and we were going to our job, once we got to school, our teachers told us what to do. And once we got to work, our boss and our manager told us what to do. And once you actually start doing something for yourself, no one is telling you what to do. So that direction and that focus and that accountability has to come from yourself. But because we've used to these environments where we had colleagues and we had classmates and we would work on group projects together, we were used to having group accountability. So you actually have to find that for yourself out in the real world, that yes, you're going to have to build something for yourself and deliver something for yourself on your own, but no one actually achieves anything good completely on their own. They tend to have to build a team over time. They have people working with them, and you absolutely will have mentors and people that you ask for advice. And I found it really difficult to ask for mentors initially because I thought, how could someone that was busy and really talented and really skilled and really experienced possibly want to help me out? But the secret is people of experienced success want to share that and want to help other people to be successful. That's the same reason that I'm trying to share through my content things that can help you. I'm very grateful for the success that I've managed to achieve in my life, and I would love to help other people to get the success that they want out of their lives, with their business, with content, even just with their job or just being more creative. Whatever they want to do, I want to help you to get there. And so that's why I'm sharing content. That's why I'm turning up on a regular basis. And that's why I want to build things as well. So checking in with people, checking in with accountability buddy, pitching those ideas and getting feedback is really vital. So someone else can say, actually, I think that's really good. You should focus on that thing because that thing sounds fantastic. And so that's what I have to keep doing, is making sure I'm being focused each week about the thing that I want to work on, the thing that I could work on, the thing that I'm delivering, and then having an accountability buddy, having peers that you catch up with and tell them about what you're working on will help you to stay focused, will help you to get where you want to go, because it will help you to prioritize the tasks you actually need to do versus the stuff you think you want to do, because you kind of vibrate between these new ideas that you have that you think you can work on versus the thing you already told people you were going to do. And so that delivery of the thing you want to exist in a year from now has to come from you being accountable and focused and having that routine to actually say, today, this is why this is important. And so that's why that journaling process is important, but that's also why the accountability partner telling other people what you're working on and why is really important, because you manifest it into the world. And then you literally have your boss, your team, your colleagues to catch up with to say, hey, this is what I'm working on and this is what I'm going to deliver. And then the next time you catch up with them, they're going to ask you, what are you doing? Where are you up to? How's this thing going? This is what you said you were working on last time. And you actually get this shared satisfaction because you get to share in the fact that they're delivering the things that they want to. And then once you deliver the thing that you're working on, they will be able to share in your success as well. And it's not just a consumer who's taking the thing you've made and consuming it. It's actually peers that say, hey, I actually really love what you did. And this was really inspiring for me. And it's helped me to work on my thing. You actually get to inspire each other about your process and your productivity and your momentum to get to the next level. So asking for accountability from other people, from peers, is really important, and looking for mentors that can help keep you on track is vital to make progress over time. Because if you stay in your own head, you're constantly going to get distracted, and each week you'll feel different about the thing that you're working on. It's very common to come into this trough of disillusionment, which is this process in the middle of working on an idea that at the very beginning, it's all exciting and fantastic. And then a few weeks in, you're like, why did I decide to do this? This is horrible. This is awful. What was I even thinking? And then things start to work and you come out the other end and you've delivered this thing. And you probably, by the end of the process, you hate it. You think it's terrible. But when you show it to other people, they're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So you need to be able to show people what you're working on because they'll keep you accountable, but they'll also support you through this trough where you get really despondent, really disillusioned, because it's hard. The messy middle is really difficult when you work on something and you've decided to start going with it. And this is why so often we get distracted at the beginning of a project and come up with all these different creative ideas, is we're avoiding the messy middle. We want to get to the end where we've delivered the thing, but we don't want to go through the pain and the mess of actually manifesting and creating this thing. We just want this perfect idea to exist. And all of your ideas that you write down are going to be perfect in your mind because you didn't have to test them. You didn't have to build them. You didn't have to release them. You didn't have to get feedback on them. They're just perfect in your mind. And so every single one of the domain names that I've bought is this perfect idea, this perfect website with this perfect product that exists with no reality, with no testing, with no feedback, with no purchases done of that thing. It's just an idea. And your ideas aren't worth anything unless you execute on them. You actually have to build something. And you don't have to build anything brilliant, it just has to be finished. You have to deliver a piece of content so people can watch it and give you feedback on it. And you have to deliver your product or service so people can consume it. Once you do that, you can start to get feedback and iterate and refine and improve on what you've done. But if you're not giving it to anyone and you're not delivering it, then you haven't actually created this thing you set out to do. You've basically just been bouncing around and actually getting nowhere. You need to deliver. And one of the things that will help you is accountability for yourself and accountability from other people. So ask for it and create it, and you'll actually deliver the things you want to get out into the world. The final thing that I wanted to talk about is AI. AI triggers a lot of people at the moment, and it's because it allows people to save time. Every piece of powerful technology over time has literally helped people to save time. Now, AI allows people to save a huge amount of time creating images or creating video, doing all this crazy stuff. So it's very easy to get triggered by that stuff. And I want to break down why. When you see another person saving time, it affects your survival instinct because we as humans are built to be able to gather resources. And we need time to be able to gather resources. So when we suddenly see someone using AI to do something really, really fast, we think that that person's somehow going to have all this extra time where they can get more resources. They can get more wealth, health, and relationships. Because those are the three key things as humans that we are driven to go and get. We want more wealth, we want more health, we want more relationships. Because if you have one of those three things, you can get the other two, right? They all affect each other, right? So as we, deal with our own motivations and our desires and our triggers as humans, we actually see this new AI content and all the stuff that's being created as a threat because it makes us feel like other people are gathering more resources and potentially going to make more money than we are. When you look at Silicon Valley and a bunch of the tech bros right now, everyone who's doing stuff in AI seems to be making tons of money. And because of this trigger around it saving time and making lots of money, it's everywhere. It's being put into everything. And every news outlet is talking about the impact of AI because it's very, very disruptive because it's this powerful new time-saving technology. Now, it doesn't work properly at the moment. It's really buggy. It's really jerky. Things just don't work properly all the time, but it is improving very, very quickly. The point I'm trying to make is that it's really important to have a growth mindset around AI. You will be triggered by it. It will annoy you, but there is actually useful tools that are in there. You can actually ask it and have this session where you kind of just chat to it for a while, try to work out a plan, work out an overview of what you're working on. It can be this really good collaborative partner to bounce ideas off, to work out how can I refine my concept? How can I refine my plan so I can stay on track? And that for me is one of the most useful ways to use it because it actually gives you a really good synthesis of what happens when you're in a workspace and you talk to other colleagues or you talk to a manager about what's going on, how you can stay on track, how you can stay accountable, how you can come up with some new ideas or focus on the right ideas and get feedback for your ideas to actually help you focus and get more forward momentum. And so by resisting all of this AI energy and all this AI noise, you'll miss out on tools that actually can be helpful for you. So I think the whole point is to be open-minded and have a growth mindset about the fact that there are useful things in there, but accept that like 80% of it is just going to be noise and it is going to annoy you and it's going to be too much. But 1 in 5 things in there that you see is actually potentially going to be useful and potentially is going to stick around. Because that's one of the hardest things to work out at the moment is that a lot of these tools will be replaced. They'll get absorbed back into these really big models that will actually work better over time. And already a couple of years into this new sort of generative AI process, we can now see these incredible tools and these incredible developments in a very short space of time, which means it's incredibly disruptive. Everyone's scared about their job. Everyone's scared about entire industries. Yes, but you still need to be someone who knows how to use these tools because if you don't, you're going to be left behind, just like people who refused to use email or refused to use the internet. They are left in the previous century, and you're going to be left in this 25-year block of this century if you don't adapt and accept the change that's happening and accept the disruption and decide to be part of this momentum. You don't have to accept everything. You don't have to wholesale accept everything that people say about AI, but just realize there's a couple of tools in there that can be useful for you. Because that's how I have to go through this process of kind of resisting the annoyance that I feel when I'm shown something on social media about this magical thing that just does stuff and replaces all these people. It's like, just, calm down and ignore that part and go, why am I getting triggered about this tool? Why am I getting triggered about this result? And how can I start to use that and actually use it in a really interesting way? Because this is a really key point that I wanted to explain about AI, is that you still need the methodical process of being a human to create something, to actually create something that's interesting to use or interesting to watch. You need to check through the details. You need to build out the different portions, different sections of something so it's interesting to use. And the example that I would use is if you were creating a novel, you need to still have chapters which are interesting to read, that flow us in a certain way. AI systems can kind of bulk create that stuff, but it's the human element of working out, is this enjoyable to read? Does this connect together? That's really important to make that work. You can't just dump it all in and expect a system like ChatGPT to dump out an entire novel. It wouldn't be as engaging as when a person is actually doing it. So yes, you could create a book in one day, but it's not going to be very good. So maybe that book's only going to be 50 cents or $1, and you want to make a book that's $29, it's going to have the human element. It's going to be better. It's going to be actually worked on in a more methodical way. The human element is still really, really important. These tools will just help you to do it in a faster way. That's the only thing I'm saying about having a growth mindset to this, is look at all the different things you do in your business or for your job and work out, where's a couple of the areas that I can test and learn and start to use AI to do things a little bit quicker. And over time, you start to realize that the time you saved, you can spend investing in other parts of your job or your business to actually get you forward momentum and get you more productivity and more results than you had before. If 30 years ago you said the internet was coming and someone said, I'm not going to use it, that person just wouldn't have continued to work, because they would have not used email and they wouldn't have been able to look anything up on a web browser. So that person just wouldn't have been useful in an office environment. And maybe they just did something that wasn't in an office environment, and that's fine. But if you wanted to be a professional and communicate with clients or colleagues and get knowledge work done, you 100% are using the internet. So the whole point now is around, if you do knowledge work, if you're working with clients, you work with colleagues, you will be using AI as part of that transition. You can feel like it's very disruptive and very noisy, but you still have to embrace some of it and say, okay, I hate all this stuff. I'm really annoyed about it, but I'm going to just try to understand one part of it. And the best way to break that down is to look at the tasks that you do every week as part of your job or running your business. Look at all the tasks that you spend time on, and then basically break those out and see how you could optimize or save some time using AI as part of that. Now, the biggest piece that will start to change is around using AI agents. Now, these are systems which can go off and do a few tasks for you and then bring back a result. And I think the best example of that that's working well at the moment is the deep research function of ChatGPT, that you basically give it a few instructions and say, this is what I want to find out. And it goes off and it comes back maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes later with the research that it's done. And that's actually kind of the AI that I want. I want something where I can give it a bunch of instructions and it goes and does some extra effort for me. The worst thing about generative AI right now is that it just spits out the next word that is the most likely word to follow the previous word based on all the data that it's been trained on. So that's why it makes mistakes and goes off and hallucinates and kind of comes up with garbage, is because it's just writing a sentence based on what it's predicting to be the next word. It's not going to replace what you do. It's a tool to use that actually helps you to do things faster. I'm not saying there's any perfect way to use it, and I'm not saying that any of these things work perfectly right now, because they absolutely don't. There's lots and lots of problems with them, and it's this frustrating kind of back and forth, and sometimes they're really, really annoying to work with. So you have to accept that, yes, this is a tool that may be able to allow you to get more resources over time, but you're going to have to learn how to use it for your business or for your job in a way that works for you. We are going to be more aware of when humans are in the loop and involved, because so many things are going to be automated, so many things are digital, so many things that are very technology heavy and advanced and powered by AI. Will still actually want some of that human factor as well. And so that's one of the really important things to look at for yourself, is that your ability to communicate, your ability to be engaging, your ability to connect with people, your ability to think creatively and critically about what you're working on, and strategically about where your career is going and where your business or your service is going. Those are things that you really have as advantages that computers don't do, because all of these AI systems just sit there waiting for a prompt, waiting for to be told what to do. And so if you're waiting to be told what to do and you don't have this agency for yourself about this momentum, about what you want to work on and what you want to get achieved, you won't be able to get where you want to go. You need to make sure you build momentum, grow your momentum, get yourself accountability through peers and systems that you can build to make sure that you're actually making progress and getting where you want to go. And then you can use tools along the way to help you to build that momentum. But if you're just waiting for someone to tell you what to do, then you might be much better off just working for companies and working for bosses. And that's okay. But if you genuinely want to build something for yourself, you've got to be self-directed. You have to have this agency for yourself, and you actually got to find other people who are working on similar stuff. So you have to have a support group. You have peers that are doing the stuff. You can support each other along the way. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to be part of this journey with you. So the thing you want to create, the thing you want to share with the world, the thing you're having trouble building and creating, I'm here to try to make this process easier for you. I genuinely want to see you be successful and get all the things you've ever dreamed of. So let's keep working on this stuff together, and we'll get the momentum that we actually want. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again soon.